Dear friends, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Ms. Deepti Gulati, Head Programs Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. She will be presenting on food fortification, enriching food, enriching lives. Over to you, Ms. Deepti.
Hi friends, I'm Deepti Gulati. I'm Head of Programs at GAIN, and I'm very delighted to be with you today to share with you how fortification of staple foods. When I say staple foods, it means fortification of basic food commodities like wheat flour, rice, oil, milk, and salt helps to improve the micronutrient profile of our body. Micronutrient malnutrition is very high in India. And when we say micronutrient malnutrition, it means malnutrition due to the deficiency of vitamins and minerals in our body. The key deficiencies that we have in India amongst all population groups are anemia, vitamin A deficiency, and vitamin D deficiency. Food fortification is one of the complementary strategies that helps to improve the quality of food, the nutrition content of the food, and helps to improve our health. So I start with a short presentation before you so that you can understand what is food fortification and how it enriches food and also our lives. So here I go with my presentation. Staple food fortification, as I said, helps us to become healthy. Good nutrition, we all know, is central to our growth and development. It defines our health and it defines our life. Food and nutrition security in India is something that you should understand before we move on for fortification. With a population of over 1.3 billion, India is the second most populous country in the world. Despite substantial strides in food grain production, India is highly challenged because of malnutrition. About 26% of India's population, that is about 338 million people, are considered food insecure, consuming less than 80% of the minimum energy requirements. Malnutrition in Indian children is amongst the highest in the world, and this is not something that we should be proud of. Overnutrition, on the other hand, is emerging as a big public health problem. When I say overnutrition, I mean mostly obesity. Now, why should we be focusing on hunger and malnutrition? Let's understand. Hunger and malnutrition stunt growth, not just physically, but also intellectually, leading to premature death, disability, lifelong susceptibility to illnesses, poor cognitive and learning skills, low achievement in school, low productivity and low wages when we grow up and we start working, and hence poverty. Malnutrition starts early, right from the womb. And micronutrient malnutrition, as I said, which is of vitamins and minerals, it impacts our health and survival, learning ability, our educability, school performance and retention rates, disability, economic productivity, and these are irreversible changes, but these are preventable. Stagnating child and maternal malnutrition rates, including micronutrient malnutrition, are very high level in India, and their impact is devastating. And hence, this is not acceptable to us. We also have an intergenerational cycle of malnutrition because micronutrient malnutrition or malnutrition per se does not only impact one generation, it moves on. Let's see how. Malnourished woman has a higher maternal mortality rate and inadequate fetal nutrition. which leads to low birth weight babies, which have impaired mental development, high mortality, and the risk when they grow up is of chronic adulthood diseases. And when we say chronic adult diseases, it is the hypertension, diabetes, cancer, osteoporosis, etc. Stunted child often has reduced mental capacity, reduced physical development, and reduced schooling. And all this leads to a stunted adolescent, impaired growth, reduced physical activity, and back to being malnourished, and the cycle goes on repeating. So poor fetal development, low birth weight, adult chronic diseases. This is the cycle, and we suffer at both the ends. Food that we eat defines our health. We know about it. So let's see what we are eating and how we are faring. When we look at a typical Indian diet that we normally consume, has almost 50% of grains and tubers. Tubers means potatoes and sweet potatoes, etc. Our dairy consumption is about 17%. Meat and legumes, pulses, which give us protein, is just about 9%. Fruits is minuscule 2%, vegetables another minuscule 9%, sweets 7%. So this is the kind of diet that we are consuming on a day-to-day basis. And let's see how and what we should be eating. This is a balanced plate which has a lot of cereals matched with a lot of fruits and vegetables, which should be providing us with micronutrients. And we have a sizable chunk of meat, fish, beans, pulses, etc., milk and milk products, and fat is limited. But the kind of diet that we are eating, which we discussed a little while back, is high on cereals and low on micronutrient rich foods like fruits and vegetables. And that's the reason we suffer from high levels of micronutrient malnutrition. When we look at the National Family Health Survey data sheet, which is of 2015-16, what we find is that the adequacy of diet in children in the initial 6 to 23 months, when the need for a good diet is most because the child is growing at the highest pace, the adequacy of diet is just 9.6% at all India level. When we look at underweight, 36% of our children at all India level are underweight, 38% are stunted, and our under 5 mortality is 50. When we look at anemia, that is less blood in our body, in children, 58.6% of children at all India level are anemic. When we look at adults, the adequacy of adults' diet is also very limited. It is just about 60%. Then Government of India gives iron folic acid tablets to women during pregnancy. And what we find is only 30% of women are consuming iron folic acid tablets. When we look at anemia levels, 50% of pregnant women in the age group of 15 to 49 years are anemic. When we look at all women, whether pregnant or non-pregnant, in the age group of 15 to 45 years, we find 53% of women are anemic. And it is not just women, because for women we can attribute menstruation to anemia, but 23% of men in India are also anemic. When we look at vitamin A and D deficiency in India, and what I'm going to share with you is the data from the National Institute of Nutrition. Let's first talk about the vitamin D deficiency. What we find is in Jammu and Kashmir, vitamin D deficiency is between 53 to 83%, Delhi 70 to 94%, Punjab 50%, Lucknow, which is representing UP, it is 75 to 90%, Mumbai, representing Maharashtra, is 88%. Kolkata, representing West Bengal, 92%. Hyderabad, representing Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, 34 to 52%. And Tirupati, 45 to 82%. This is something very high, and these are the figures of National Institute of Nutrition. When we look at vitamin A deficiency, what we find is that most of the states have very high level of vitamin A deficiency at the blood level. And the pool data shows that 62% of people in different states have vitamin A deficiency at the blood level. And vitamin A is widely prevalent in fruits and vegetables, specifically the green leafy vegetables, yellow, red, orange fruits and vegetables. And we find that the percentage of population which is eating less than 50% of the required amount of vitamin A rich foods is 86%. This is unacceptable because this leads to a very high burden of vitamin A and D deficiencies in India, which impact one and all. It is not focused only on women or children. It is across all population groups. Now, let's understand, is nutrition a poverty issue? Because many a times we feel, बेचारे क्या खाएंगे, गरीब हैं, उनको मिलता ही क्या? What will people eat? Because they hardly have any money to buy food. So let's see, is nutrition really a poverty issue? When we look at stunting in the highest income quintile and in the lowest income quintile, yes, there is much high level of stunting in lowest income quintile. If 22% of population in the highest quintile is stunted, it is 51% in the lowest quintile. Similarly, when we look at underweight, only 20% of children in the highest income quintile are underweight and 49% are underweight in the lowest income quintile. When we look at thinness in women in the age group of 15 to 49, only 12% women in the highest income quintile are thin, whereas in the lowest income quintile, 36% are thin for their age. So undernutrition definitely affects poorest the most. But now let's look at the other levels which are due to micronutrient malnutrition. When we look at anemia, what we find is that in the highest income quintile, anemia is prevalent in children in 52% of children, whereas in the lowest income quintile, anemia is present in 64%, not much of a difference. Similarly, when we look at anemia, 48% of women in the highest income quintile are anemic and 59% of women in the lowest income quintile are anemic. When we look at the consumption of vitamin A rich foods in the past 24 hours, which was based on the data that has been collected for children in the age group of 6 months to 23 months, what we find is only 47% of children in the highest quintile consumed vitamin A rich foods and 42% consumed vitamin A rich foods in the lowest income quintile. Hardly a difference. Similarly, when we look at the consumption of iron-rich foods in the past 24 hours, what we find is that in the highest quintile, 18% of children consumed iron-rich foods and in lowest income quintile, 15%. So, the poor consumption of micronutrient-rich foods and anemia affects all, irrespective of the socioeconomic groups, and that's what is most worrying, and that needs to be corrected. If we have to look at how to manage micronutrient malnutrition, basically we have three strategies to control. One is supplementation, that is giving of iron folic acid tablets, vitamin A drops, vitamin D capsules, and so on and so forth. It is a safe and efficient strategies to eliminate micronutrient deficiencies. These are available in capsules and syrups, and also Government of India has weekly iron and folic acid tablets given to school children. So the data, however, shows that Government of India's programs reach only about 55% of the population, and compliance is a very big issue. When I say Government of India's programs reach, I'm not saying that the micronutrient supplements are not available. What I'm talking about is, even though supplements are available, people do not come to take these, or when they take it, they don't consume it. Then we have dietary diversification. Dietary diversification means you have a plate full of cereals, pulses, eggs, milk, whoever take that, fruits and vegetables. But dietary diversification, as you saw in my previous slides, the adequacy of diet is extremely poor. One of the reasons is that the food prices are spiraling. Hence, most diets are only cereals and tubers and are low in vegetables, low in fruits, lentils, pulses, and foods from the animal sources. Affordability of a diversified diet is also a very big question. The third option is staple food fortification. It is a very good option because the consumption of staple foods is very high. Staple foods means oil, milk, wheat flour, rice, and salt. When I say consumption of oil and milk is high, I'm not saying that you're taking 1 liter of oil a day. Normally, people do consume across all socioeconomic groups about 25 to 30 grams of oil every day, and that is sufficiently good. Secondly, even though adults in all places may not drink milk, but they have 4 to 5 cups of or 3 to 4 cups of tea every day, which has added milk. So about 200 to 250 ml of milk is the average consumption across all socioeconomic groups. So if we fortify milk, oil, and we all know cereals, every one of us is consuming, even though we may not consume pulses, we may not have very much of vegetables, but everyone eats chapatis and rice, either a combination or singularly. So if milk, oil, wheat flour, rice, and salt are adequately fortified with micronutrients, then we can get micronutrients to all population groups. The process of fortification is very easy and it has the potential to reach all income groups because all income groups consume these staples. And also, it does not require any change in eating habit. You don't have to remember to eat chapati or rice. You don't have to remember to drink tea. So if you don't have to remember to add salt and oil to your food. So it does not require any compliance. And one of the best advantages of fortification is that if you fortify the food with micronutrients, it does not lead to any organoleptic changes. And organoleptic changes means it brings about no change in the color, texture, flavor, or taste of the food. So fortification is one of the most efficient and a very low cost strategy, and it can yield significant results in a very short period of time. Food fortification or enrichment is a process of adding vitamins and minerals to food. Fortification, especially of staples like wheat flour, oil, milk, etc., is considered to be a very good public health policy strategy to provide micronutrients to reduce the dietary deficiencies across all population groups. And fortification can also be done as a purely commercial choice to provide extra nutrients in food product. For example, these days you must be amused by seeing the advertisements on the TV channels, and every product that is sold or advertised on the TV channels talks about boosting immunity, whether it's toothpaste, oil, or any other food. So when we actually add micronutrients to staple foods, it actually helps to make our body healthy, and vitamin A and D actually boost immunity. So if you are having a fortified food product, then certainly it can be a very good commercial choice for the food companies to adopt, add value to their product, make it nutritionally rich, and at the same time give a good option, a healthier food to its consumers. So fortification can be a purely commercial choice and a wise choice to provide extra nutrients in a food product. But I really want to add on, which I would of course be sharing further also, that fortification is very cheap. Frankly, if all the food companies start fortifying their products with just little optimization of their processes of production, they actually can absorb the cost of fortification very easily. So food fortification offers a tremendous opportunity towards improving the micronutrient status of populations. But friends, I also want to share with you that you may hear a lot of things, oh, we are adding chemicals to the foods and so on and so forth. But let me assure you that food fortification is not a new idea. If you look at the food fortification's global timeline, you would be surprised that mandatory fortification of edible oils and milk with vitamin D started in Canada in 1918, more than a century back. Similarly, in US, fortification, US as well as in Switzerland, fortification of salt that with iodine, which is the salt iodization, started way back in 1923. Similarly, if you would look at these countries which I have just circled right now, you would see that till about 1940, most of the countries in the Europe and US or the Americas, they had started fortification. In India also, we've moved for fortification of Vanaspati way back in 1953. So it was made mandatory to fortify Vanaspati with vitamin A in 1953 because our scientists, our nutritionists did realize that vitamin A was a big problem in India. Since everyone during that time was consuming Vanaspati, so if Vanaspati is fortified, vitamin A will reach the population groups automatically. Somehow over a period of time, the scientific evidence showed that Vanaspati or hydrogenated fats are trans fats and not good for health. People started switching from Vanaspati to oil. And somewhere this good exercise of adding or making it mandatory to fortify oil also slipped through the cracks. This we are trying to rebuild. In 1962, Government of India started with salt iodization program, and now all the salt that is sold in India for cooking purposes is iodized. So over the last 100 years, food fortification has played a major role in improving the health of populations at large in industrialized countries, and several nutritional deficiencies have been completely eliminated. I'm sure you would have come across your cousins or your friends who are studying public health or medicine in Europe and US or in the industrialized countries. They come to India for internship to see what kind of micronutrient malnutrition actually exists. This is something very painful that in the West, they don't even know what rickets is. They don't know what night blindness is or a betot spot is. They have to travel to India to see these kind of problems. And that's something we need to reverse. We need to correct. We need to start fortifying our staple foods so that we also eliminate these micronutrient deficiencies completely. The strategic advantages of fortification are plenty because Staple foods are consumed regularly by all, and if we fortify these staple foods with micronutrients, it would be the best option because everyone consumes on a very regular basis. Fortification is a proven, simple, low-cost technology. It is a preventive population-wide approach through which fortified foods can be made available to the entire population. And Government of India has also mandated that in ICDS and MDM, we should be only using fortified wheat flour, fortified rice, fortified oil, and double fortified salt. It's a different matter that this mandate is not getting translated into action because the supply of fortified foods is limited and industry needs to now come forward to start fortification so that children who are covered through ICDS and MDM get adequately and appropriately fortified foods and remain healthy. Since staple foods are centrally processed and micronutrients are added in very low doses, fortification poses no risk whatsoever of excessive intake. There is no change in color, taste, texture, or quality of staples due to fortification, and hence there is very high acceptability of fortified foods. No one rejects a food just because it is fortified, because it does not have any impact on the organoleptic sensories of any individual. Fortification is done at the levels which are mandated by FSSAI, and hence it is only 20 to 30% of our required or recommended dietary allowances. Hence, it can never lead to any excessive intake. Fortification only helps to bridge the gap between actual intake and the body's requirement. The fortified foods have added micronutrients, and these added micronutrients have very high bioavailability. When I say bioavailability, I mean that all the micronutrients are available to the body and used by the body and not excreted out of the body. So there is a very high bioavailability, and it also has a rapid impact without requiring any behavior change. You can forget to eat your micronutrient supplement tablet or a syrup. You can forget to take a medicine, but you cannot forget to eat food. So when you eat food, you get those micronutrients automatically. And the micronutrients have added overages so that they are highly stable during cooking and storage. So even when you are cooking, the micronutrients that are added into the food are not destroyed and they're available for the body. I would also like to share with you that GAIN India's footprint is very wide, and as you can see, our Honorable Prime Minister is also supporting the GAIN WFP project on fortified foods. We have all the different ministers in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, actually launching the fortified food products. And I'm very proud to say that through GAIN's work, we are reaching 890 million people in India through one or the other fortified products. And GAIN India is of course working in edible oil, milk and wheat flour fortification, whereas the other two commodities, which is rice and salt, is being done by our other development sector partners, which the list which I would share with you right away. The cost of fortification is very, very minimal. It ranges from rupees 20 to rupees 100 per metric ton. And 1 metric ton, I know every one of us knows that it is 1000 kgs. So the cost of fortification per person per year on account of wheat flour fortification is just 8 rupees. On account of milk, it is just about 3 rupees. And on account of edible oil, again, it is 3 rupees, because as you see, the cost of fortifying wheat flour, 1 kg of wheat flour is just 10 paisa. for fortifying 1 liter of milk is just 1.5 paisa, less than even 2 paisa. And the cost of fortifying edible oil is 10 to 15 paisa. So the cost is minuscule on a per person per year basis, and the benefits are enormous. Fortification works, as you can see. In Canada, fortification of margarine with vitamin A brought down vitamin A deficiency from 48% to just about 2%, and mortality from 105 to 60 per 10,000 live births within 4 years, way back in 1944 to 1948. In the developing countries, the impact of wheat flour fortification has been enormous. In Venezuela, fortification of wheat flour reduced iron deficiency from 37% to 15% and anemia from 19 to 9% within a span of 2 years, that is from 1992 to 1994. In India, GAIN was working with Rajasthan government for fortification of wheat flour as well as fortification of oil and milk. We supported government of Rajasthan for fortification of wheat flour through the PDS in the year 2012 to 2014, and this NFHS 4 data, that is National Family Health Survey 4 data, was collected during 15-16 after the project was over. And if you would see here, the underweight, stunting and under 5 mortality of all India and Rajasthan is absolutely comparable. When we look at the children who received vitamin A, 60% of children at all India level received vitamin A, whereas only 40% of children in Rajasthan received vitamin A. The impact, as you can see, the prevalence of vitamin A deficiency in children 5 years to 19 years in Rajasthan is between 15.6 to, in all India level is 15.6 to 21.5%. And look at Rajasthan. This vitamin A deficiency in the same age group, that is 5 to 19 years, is just 1 to 1.9%. This is not GAIN data. This is comprehensive National Nutrition Survey data collated from the field. It is Government of India's data, which was collected in 2016 and 2017. GAIN had started fortification of both oil and milk in Rajasthan in 2012. So people were getting fortified oil as well as fortified milk in Rajasthan, and the evidence is before you that it substantially reduced vitamin A deficiency. Now let's look at the iron. At all India level, the pregnant women who are anemic is 50%. All women in the age group are 53% and men are 23%. When you look at Rajasthan, it is 46.6% anemia in pregnant women, 46.8% anemia in women in the reproductive age group, that is 15 to 40 years, and it is 17% in men, almost 6%, 6 to 7% lower than the national average. And this is after we had introduced fortified wheat flour through the PDS in Rajasthan from 2012 to 2014. So introduction of wheat flour in PDS during 2012 to 2014 brought down anemia levels as per NFHS 4 data, and fortification of edible oil and milk since 2012 brought down the levels of vitamin A deficiency in Rajasthan. So we are very happy to show that yes, perhaps fortification makes a difference without enormous cost or without change in the taste or acceptability by people. There is a regulatory support and there is an enabling environment for fortification. because Food Safety and Standards Authority of India permits and advocates for staple food fortification. Standards for fortification of staple foods have been gazetted. India's 10th, 11th, 12th 5-year plans also recommend fortification, and we also have Poshan Abhiyan, the National Nutrition Mission, and Anemia Mukt Bharat Mission, which recommend food fortification as a good strategy. Ministry of Food Processing Industry, Government of India, provides financial assistance to the food industry for capital equipment and its installation for undertaking fortification and value addition and demand creation. Ministry of Women and Child Development, Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is now Ministry of Education, Government of India, have made it mandatory to use fortified oil, wheat flour, double fortified salt, and rice in MDM and ICDS programs, which I have already shared with you. And the Department of Food and Public Distribution, Government of India recommends that instead of giving grains, the states should opt for giving fortified wheat flour, fortified rice, and pass on the cost to the consumer, because as of today also, when people buy grains, they go and get it milled at a cost. So if they're getting atta instead of grains and that is fortified, it would be a better, healthier option. The key departments and implementers for fortification at the government level are FSSAI and the State Food and Drug Administration, Department of Women and Child Development, Department of Midday Meals, Department of Food and Civil Supplies, State Food and Civil Supplies Corporations, State Cooperative Dairy Federations, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology. And in the development sector, the partners who can provide technical support are GAIN for wheat flour, oil and milk, Tata Trust for oil and milk, UNICEF for salt, World Food Programme for rice and wheat flour, Nutrition International for salt, rice and wheat flour, PATH for rice, Food Fortification Initiative for wheat flour and rice, and ICC IDD for the iodized salt. So friends, as we've been discussing, fortification has rich returns on very low investment. Fortification has a great potential to enrich food and improve the lives of millions of children by giving them a healthy start to life. It is a basic right which our children rightly deserve. So let's not miss out on the opportunity. Food Fortification India is an unfinished agenda. So let's join hands to provide good health and improved quality of life to all. Let's eat right. Let's eat fortified. Thank you so much for being very patient and listening. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in your question box and I would respond to each and every question and they would be shared with you on your email or on the website of the organizers for your answers to the queries that you may have raised. Thank you once again, and we part with this message once again. Let's eat right, let's eat fortified, look for the +F logo. Okay, have a nice day, remain safe.
Thank you, Ms. Deepti, for these absolutely enlightening words.